To just talk about the kind of potential that we hold, what you see on the left-hand side is basically the percentile or the quintile distribution of incomes in India. This is in terms of the last census that we had in 2011, 2012. If you look at the richest 20%, that's earning about 1.6 lakh plus per annum. In terms of vehicle distribution that you see, it is extremely under-penetrated. Between urban and rural households, there are about 260 million households in India. And if you look at the rural household penetration, just about 2% of them have cars. If you look at two-wheelers, it's a much better number at 14%, but it still does not match the kind of urban penetration that you see for two-wheelers at about 35%. So clearly, the opportunity is there. And again, a small thing that we talked about earlier in terms of lower interest rate, not only allow the current buyers to pay lower EMIs for their cars or their two-wheelers. In fact, when you look at the kind of growth that can come in with reduced EMIs is very significant. For example, if the interest rates are lowered by about 5% for a 3 lakh kind of ownership, for a 3 lakh kind of a loan, you're clearly looking at about 9,000 rupees per annum saving from what you see between 15% and 10% interest rates. Again, these may not sound as large numbers, but when you index it against the kind of earnings that are there on the left-hand side, they are significant. They are very significant numbers once you index it against the kind of earnings that are there currently in the Indian market. Again, coming closer and looking at the changing market construct, while the regulatory framework, the kind of, the economic headwinds or tailwinds are one part of the puzzle, the other part of the puzzle also is a sharp change that we see in terms of consumers, in terms of the way they are interacting with the different categories that we have to offer. For example, if you look at small cars itself, it's about 14% reduction in volumes over the past 5 years. There are other segments like UVs as well as mid-sized cars that have grown over these 5 years. There is a change in the distribution of sales. The top 5 cities, which accounted for about 51% of overall volumes, today account for just about 41% of the overall numbers. So that's a dramatic change in just about 5 years. First-time buyers, from a time when we had about 42% in 2010, nearly 1 out of 2 customers is a first-time buyer today in the passenger car space. Internet shopping is again something which has grown dramatically. What you see here is just a growth over 5 years. But if I was to chart over 10 years, then that number that you see, 22%, was negligible. There was hardly any internet penetration about 10 years ago. So from that number to 28%, which is an all-India average, is a remarkable increase. There are areas in southern India, for example, the growth has been even more sharper. 1 out of 3 customers is accessing the internet before he walks into a dealership. In bigger cities like Bangalore, it is 1 out of 2 customers who are actually accessing the internet before they walk into the dealership. So clearly, the rise of the internet is something which we all realize, but we're just putting data behind to show how dramatic this change is in a fairly short span of time.